Tonight on KIMT News 3 at 10, authorities all over schools, not only at Lourdes High School in Rochester, but in Mankato, Austin, and several others throughout Minnesota too, because of what's called swatting. Fake calls to dispatchers alerting first responders of shootings at schools that aren't actually happening.
This is just a despicable act to put at risk the lives of everyone.
And now, an investigation to find out who's responsible for setting at least 15 schools into lockdown as a precaution, and the punishment they will likely face once caught.
KIMT News 3, coverage you can count on. This is KIMT News 3 at 10.
And thank you for choosing KIMT News 3 at 10. I'm Tyler Utska. It's been a tense day across the country and in our area as law enforcement agencies have been responding to a series of hoax 911 calls at school districts. KIMT News 3's Jessica Bringy joins us live tonight from Lourdes High School, where the first false active shooter call came in to Rochester police this morning. Jessica.
Tyler, it's been confirmed by the FBI what happened here at Lourdes High School earlier today was part of a nationwide swatting incident. And while that hoax 911 call means thankfully no one was injured, the response to the potential shooting incident was very real. Shortly past 10 on Wednesday morning, law enforcement agencies rushed on scene to Lourdes High School in Rochester following a report of shots fired inside the school.
This triggered a multi-agency, multi-discipline response.
During a press conference, authorities confirmed the call at Lourdes did come from a real person, but was a hoax, with the suspect using an internet phone number not from Minnesota. The false reports are known as swatting because they're meant to bring in SWAT teams or other heavily armed police units.
This is a ridiculous phone call that we received, but it is reflective of our capability to respond to these things in a rapid, quick manner, melding together and rapidly responding to these things to ascertain that there is no threat.
While Wednesday's 911 call turned out to be a hoax, the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office says when incidents like this are real, they're some of the most horrific situations law enforcement officials have to respond to in their career.
This is reality, unfortunately, and it's really sad reality in our country and our world today.
Without an actual active shooter threat, the lack of physical injury is, of course, positive. But these types of incidents can still have real-world emotional consequences.
Students, adolescents' mental health is already in a very challenging place right now. And when you traumatize them at school like this, that's very difficult for them to overcome.
If caught, the suspect could face charges of filing a false police report or even worse if police respond and it leads to a homicide or assault. Those responsible for calling could face charges for criminally negligent homicide. Live in Rochester, Jessica Bringy, KIMT News 3.
Jessica, thank you very much. And if you have any information on the calls, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension is asking you to notify law enforcement and school resource officers about suspected threats using their See It, Say It, Send It app. And another school that was affected by this in Rochester included Rochester's Mayo High School. RPS confirmed that the vehicle and person observed by the student was a law enforcement officer responding to Lourdes who briefly stopped near Mayo High School. Mother Brianna Screwrud was picking up her son for a doctor's appointment during everything.
I tried to make contact with my son. I couldn't hear from him. I drove by here. There were cops, there were policemen, state highway troopers, ambulance. So it was a very scary feeling when I heard those sirens.
RPS says in a statement in part, quote, "We are extremely pleased with the student who reported the situation to building leaders. We are all safer when individuals say something when they see something." And Austin Public Schools went into lockdown earlier today, too, because of similar threats. Parents were sent a safety notification a few hours ago saying that the school district was in lockdown due to a threat. Now, in the message to parents and guardians, it said that the safety and security of children at their school is a top priority. Parents were asked to stay where they were and remain available for any updates. This threat, of course, follows all of them that have happened locally, especially the one in Rochester at Lourdes High School that happened at around 10 o'clock this morning. And tonight, we're also getting a sense of the scope of this hoax that's nationwide. As you can see here, 15 Minnesota school districts were affected by the swatting calls. These include districts in Rochester, Austin, Mankato, the Twin Cities, and even up in the Duluth area. But these types of calls have started to become a nationwide problem. In the last week alone, police in 11 states have had to respond to at least one school swatting call. Experts say that if something goes wrong while law enforcement are responding to one of these false calls, the caller could be on the hook for a major felony.
If there's nothing that happens that's violent at the scene, you would have making a false police report, filing a false incident report. But you can easily see the situation accidentally escalate to possibly an assault or even a homicide if there's an accidental shooting. And you would expect then that the perpetrators could face very serious felony charges for criminally negligent homicide, manslaughter, any related offenses, depending on what municipality they're in.
And authorities say they believe a single person or a group made these calls because they are all similar in nature. All right, turning to weather now on this Wednesday night. Currently 52 degrees. We have not seen temperatures this low in quite some time. And in just, less than 2 hours, it's going to be the first day of fall. Let's get to Chief Meteorologist Aaron White for the forecast for the next few days, Aaron.
Yeah, exactly, Tyler. We're talking about fall-like weather, and it certainly is starting to feel like it out there as we got temperatures already in the 50s. We're dropping down into the 40s, though, for tonight, and we actually had high temperatures into the lower 70s. Now, you're thinking, didn't really feel that warm. Well, those 70s actually happened after midnight because we've been pretty much stuck in the 60s all afternoon, and now we are down into the 50s, almost into the upper 40s in a few places. We got you at 50 degrees right now in Owatonna, 54 in Rochester, 55 for Osage and St. Ansgar, 53 in Cresco, and 53 also in Mason City and Clear Lake. But as we look across the area, again, live over downtown Rochester, we have mostly clear skies, but look at those temperatures. Dipping down into the 40s for tonight, so it's going to be starting to feel a little chilly, but also more fall-like, especially as we're heading into the first day of fall tomorrow. We got sunshine on tap and highs in the lower 60s, but more cool weather is in store. But I'm also tracking a chance for rain as we get into your Friday, and I'll have a look at that and your weekend forecast here in about 10 minutes.
All right, thank you, Aaron. A Rochester man who decided to fight police officers is taking a plea deal. Richard Illingworth pled guilty to an assault charge for a fight that happened last October. One of his charges were dropped as part of the plea deal. Rochester police say Illingworth was found drunk in the 1300 block of 7th Street Northwest, and officers were going to give him a ride home when he stumbled into the road. He's been sentenced to a year of unsupervised probation. Education support professionals at Rochester Public Schools, formerly known as paraprofessionals, are getting a raise. RPS approved a $3 per hour pay increase for this school year and an additional $1 for the year following at Tuesday's school board meeting last night. So general ESPs will now start out at $18 an hour. Before, it was $15 an hour. The district also increased pay for licensed practical nurses, registered nurses, and licensed school nurses for this school year as well. Now, these pay changes went into effect today. We'll still ahead here tonight at 10. Sentenced to time behind bars. How long a former Minneapolis police officer will serve for his actions on the day George Floyd died. Plus, a rail project in the Twin Cities is causing the owner of a warehouse to sue the company in charge of construction for damages done to his property. Why he feels he shouldn't be paying for those damages. Next.
KIMT News 3 at 10. Your local news with KIMT News 3's Tyler Yutzka. Tracking storms with Storm Team 3 Chief Meteorologist Aaron White. This is KIMT News 3. More local news that is happening right now. We are coverage you can count on. We track storms to alert you first. This is KIMT Storm Team 3. Weather coverage you can count on.
Let's get you the latest on the forecast now. Chief Meteorologist Aaron White. Aaron, the temperatures are dropping. We're currently in the low 50s, but look at that. something we have not seen in quite some time, a frost advisory.
Yeah, not too far away, in fact, and we're talking about temperatures up there dipping into the 30s. So luckily we don't have that, but it is going to be on the chilly side for tonight, Tyler, as we're dipping down into the 40s for much of the area. It's possible that a couple locations not too far away could dip into the upper 30s, but frost advisories are in effect for parts of the Dakotas and northern Minnesota, where if we look at that, you can see where the light blue and the dark blue, that means temperatures near or below 36 degrees. So yeah, it's that time of year. We're getting into the fall season, and of course it does kick off tomorrow with the first day of fall. And as we look ahead to the forecast, if you're thinking about doing some fall-like activities, maybe some apple picking or heading out to some of the corn mazes around, it's going to be pretty nice for tomorrow. As we look at your Thursday, calling for a high right around 62 and a fair amount of sunshine. We are tracking, though, the chance for some rain as we get into Friday, but the weekend also looking fairly nice. As for Saturday, calling for a high right around 70, and then we'll be back into the 60s as we get into your Sunday. But overall, things are looking nice, rather cool for fall conditions, and also we got some of the fall foliage starting to at least see a little bit of change here across the area. As we look at southern Minnesota, this fall color report coming in from the Minnesota DNR showing at least some areas reporting that 10 to 25% change, at least around Austin, Albert Lee, Owatonna, and back towards the west over by Mankato. So we're getting some change, but we really don't reach the peak of the fall colors until we get into at least the first or second week of October. So we got some time. But at least it's nice to see at least a little change happening across the area. But as we look ahead to the weekend forecast, as I mentioned, if you're thinking about checking out some of the fall colors or maybe taking the kids out to some of the corn mazes or apple orchards, we got highs around 70 on Saturday and 64 degrees on Sunday with a mix of clouds and sunshine. But for now, it's starting to cool off down into the 50s, and eventually we're dropping down into the 40s for tonight. We got 53 in Mason City, 48, there you go, already in Owatonna, 54 in Austin, and 54 degrees in Rochester. Looking ahead to tomorrow as you're stepping out the door, yeah, there's those 40s, but a lot of sunshine on tap for your Thursday. It's going to be a pretty nice day overall with just a light breeze. As we look into Friday, we are tracking our next chance for rain. Calling for about a 60% chance as we could see some decent rainfall amounts, generally under a quarter of an inch as we go through the day. But for tonight and tomorrow, not really talking about too much. Clear skies, maybe some patchy fog in the morning, but otherwise sunshine is on tap for your Thursday. For tonight, mostly clear skies and 44 degrees, rather chilly. Grab that jacket as you're heading out the door. 62 for a high on your Thursday. And as we look ahead to the 7-day forecast, where the weekend is always in view, showing those highs in the 60s as we get into Sunday, and a lot more sunshine and rather cool conditions for next week.
All right, thank you, Aaron. A former Minneapolis police officer who pled guilty to a state charge of aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter in the killing of George Floyd was sentenced this morning. Thomas Lane pled guilty back in May. Judge Peter Cahill sentenced him to 36 months. The 3-year sentence is shorter than the presumptive sentence, which would typically be 41 to 57 months. Cahill says the shorter sentence is because Lane played a less culpable role in Floyd's death. He also told Lane during sentencing that his decision to accept responsibility was very wise.
I'll just stop and note that I think it was a very wise decision for you to accept responsibility and move on with your life, even though the Floyd family has problems, and understandably so, problems moving on with their own lives, since we are still in process on 2 of the other defendants. And as they said, they might not ever be able to move on.
Lane is already serving 30 months in a federal prison for violating Floyd's civil rights. New at 10 tonight, Kauffman Memorial Union on the University of Minnesota's Minneapolis campus was evacuated earlier tonight because of a bomb threat. Police first blocked off the building and several nearby streets at around 5:30 tonight. After about 90 minutes or so, police gave the all clear and declared the area safe. Right now, it's not known who made the threat or what specifically the threat was, or if it's tied to today's earlier threats at schools. Stay with us here and online as we get updates to this story. And now let's see what you can expect tomorrow morning right here on Daybreak.
Tomorrow morning on Daybreak, one family in Albert Lee has been inviting visitors to their sunflower field for years. And this year, they're using the fields to honor those who have lost their battle to cancer, those who are fighting their battle, and those who have beat the disease. We have an inside look. Well, that story and more tomorrow morning on Daybreak starting at 4:30. See you there.
A man is suing the Met Council and its contractors for property damage that he alleges stemmed from part of the construction of the Southwest Light Rail project within just feet of his building. Here's Caroline Cummings with more.
If you step inside Stephen Savitt's small warehouse in Minneapolis, you'll find fractured floors and separated cinder blocks.
It's this crack here that just showed up fairly recently.
It's a windowless warehouse that still gets sunlight. Savitt says that's because of damage from nearby construction of the Southwest Light Rail project.
We walk in there gingerly just to make sure we don't initiate a collapse of the building. You know, all I'm looking for is just the cost to replace the building so I get back to where I was.
Savitt is suing the Met Council and the construction companies doing the work for the damage, $800,000. The lawsuit alleges negligence, saying they knew the work in the Kenilworth Tunnel was risky.
Kind of like the Red Sea, it parted, moving, two directions during the tunneling process.
That part of the project happening within feet of the property that now sits vacant. It's unusable, so a former tenant closed up shop.
The Office of the Legislative Auditor in a recent report highlighted that this Kenilworth corridor is one of the key drivers of increasing costs for the Southwest Light Rail project. And right now, more than $500 million of it is not funded.
Nearby, a condo building also damaged. Chair of the Met Council, Charlie Zelli, told lawmakers that a mediation process is underway to address residents' concerns and find solutions.
I think that process is a good one.
If I have a neighbor that does 100% of the damage, they should be responsible for 100% of the cost.
Now, the Met Council said it does not comment on pending litigation. A spokeswoman in an email highlighted the process for reporting potential damage from light rail construction. The attorney representing the construction companies named in the lawsuit did not respond to requests for comment about the lawsuit. A federal appeals court is letting the Justice Department resume its criminal probe of classified documents seized from former President Trump's Florida home. What this means for the investigation and the appointed special master. And Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is calling for Russia to be tried for war crimes as Russia threatens to use nuclear weapons. How Biden responded to Russia's threats in front of the UN. Coming up next. Virginia Ginny Thomas has agreed to an interview with the House Select Committee investigating the Capitol insurrection. A source close to the committee says Thomas, the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, will be interviewed in the coming weeks. Thomas's attorney says his client wants to clear up any misconceptions about her work relating to the 2020 election. Thomas reportedly communicated with Trump White House officials and leaders in swing states about efforts to overturn election results. She has been openly critical of the House committee investigating the riots. New at 10, a federal appeals court is letting the Justice Department resume its criminal probe of classified documents seized from former President Trump's Florida home. The emergency intervention reverses a trial judge's ruling that blocked federal investigators' work on the documents. It also partially halts a special master's review of that subset of about 100 records, which would have allowed Trump's legal team to see them. However, the special master is able to continue his work reviewing the rest of the material seized from Mar-a-Lago. Judge Raymond Deary's job is to ensure investigators don't use records belonging to Trump or those he may be able to claim are confidential. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky told the United Nations, the General Assembly, that he wants to see Russia face a just punishment for their invasion. But as CBS's Michael George reports, Russian President Vladimir Putin is showing no signs of slowing down despite recent setbacks on the battlefield.
Russian President Vladimir Putin escalated his war on Ukraine Wednesday, making an apparent threat of nuclear war. We will use every means at our disposal, he said, adding, this is not a bluff.
A nuclear war cannot be won and must never be fought.
President Biden called the remarks irresponsible during a speech to the United Nations General Assembly and said the world must continue supporting Ukraine.
This war is about extinguishing Ukraine's right to exist as a state. That should make your blood run cold.
In a taped message to the UN, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky wants a special tribunal to hold Russia accountable.
And Ukraine demands punishment for trying to steal our territory, punishment for the murders of thousands of people.
Zelensky's forces have reclaimed large swaths of land in recent weeks, uncovering new horrors of war in liberated towns. Hoping to stop Ukraine's progress, Putin also ordered a partial mobilization of reservists, Russia's first such call-up since World War II. More than 1,000 Russian citizens were arrested protesting the announcement, while others fled the country. Today, 10 prisoners captured by Russia, including 2 Americans, were freed in an exchange brokered by Saudi Arabia. Military veterans Andy Wynn and Alex Drucke are expected to return to America after medical checks and a debriefing. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
Wynn and Drucke went to Ukraine separately. They met there and bonded over their Alabama roots. 5 British nationals are also among those freed. Now let's see what's coming up next in sports with Mary.
Thanks, Tyler. Hockey season is underway. We will hear from the Mason City Toros and the North Iowa Bulls, plus the Stewartville Tigers and the Pine Islands and Rhoda Mazeppa Wildcats hit the field tonight. I have highlights for you next.
A boys soccer team is making some noise at their game tonight. In KIMT News 3 Sports, Mary Peters joins us now to tell us all about it. Mary.
Yeah, Tyler, they're making some noise tonight and in general. The Pine Islands and Rhoda Mazeppa Wildcats are on a roll, and they hosted the Stewartville Tigers tonight. Take a look. The Wildcats got on the board first and added to that lead. Lucas Sem shoots and he scores. Pine Islands and Rhoda Mazeppa leads 2-0 in the first, and this one was close, but it bounces off the goalpost. The Wildcats got the victory, though, beating the Tigers 4-0. Well, let's talk some hockey. The Mason City Toros are coming off a sweep last weekend over the Minnesota Loons. The team's next opponent is New Ulm. I caught up with center Colin Hogan, and he says the Bulls need to play as a unit and stick to that game plan. The team's structure is always a work in progress, especially in the defensive zone. Center Colin Hogan says the goal is a championship this season, and he thinks they can get there.
Seeing the group that we have this year, knowing that it's a special group, that we have the ability to go all the way and win a championship. Like, just knowing that and seeing the group and knowing that we already have a good foundation with our veteran group.
The Toros have this weekend off, but travel to New Ulm next weekend. Well, the North Iowa Bulls are hitting the ice this week. They are taking on the Minot Toros. The Bulls started off the season hot with 3 shutout wins just a few days ago. The Janesville Jets handed North Iowa its first loss of the season, getting that 3-1 victory. Jake LaRusso with the solo goal in that one for the Bulls. Goalie Eric Shave jumped up a level this year from the NA3HL to the NAL.
Definitely very different. It's a lot faster, a lot bigger guys, smarter, stronger, quicker. Some of the games last year, like Granite, wasn't a whole lot of difference, but just in general, everybody's a really good hockey player in this league, and it's a battle every shift.
And the Bulls are traveling to Minot on Friday to take on the Minot Toros. Puck drops at 7:35. Aaron.
Thank you, Mary. As we look ahead to our forecast going into tomorrow morning, it's going to be kind of cool as you head out the door. May want to grab that light jacket. We got temperatures in the 40s to start off your Thursday morning, the first day of fall, and we'll be up to around 49 degrees as we head towards 9 o'clock. Winds going to be on the light side for tomorrow as well, so overall should be a pretty nice day as we look ahead to our forecast for the next 3 days. On your Thursday, we got sunshine and a high right around 62. Winds about 5 to 10 miles per hour, so really nothing to worry about, but we are tracking some more clouds and a chance for some rain as we head into Friday. Hopefully that all clears out of here just in time for that Friday football. The weekend, though, looking great. Saturday, 70, and really nice fall-like conditions.
Cooling down and then warming up a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
All right, thank you so much, and thank you for joining us tonight at 10. Hope you have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.